Hello and welcome to Chamber Chat, Caroline County's Chamber of Commerce's way to get to know your community. Today I'm excited to have Commissioner Larry Porter as our guest. I'm Tracey Snyder, the Executive Director for the Chamber. First, we want to thank Gift to Guy Media. We're here in Greensboro, Maryland. They are an affiliation of Jones Aggregate. They're located on 100 South Main Street in Greensboro. They offer photography, videography, and of course, a podcast. They specialize in weddings, events, commercials, and photo sessions. If you want to give them a call, you can call 302-505-0569. And we are so glad to be here. So, Commissioner Porter, for our listeners that don't know who you are, which I can't imagine there are any, but you might have some, can you share a little bit about who you are and the journey that led you right to where you are right now with our county?
Okay. Well, I was born in Caroline County. In fact, I was born in a farmhouse about a mile from here, and grew up in a house at the end of this block. So, Greensboro's my hometown, and graduated from North Carolina High School, attended the old Greensboro school, not the one they're getting ready to tear down, but the one before that. So as Governor Hogan said, that you're really old. I said, yes, I am. So, but attended Greensboro Elementary School, graduated from North Carolina High School in 1970. Went to Chesapeake College, played baseball at Chesapeake College, then went on for a little while to Salisbury University. And ran a property management and development company called Cabell Corporation for about 32 years. And we recently, at the end of last year, or the beginning of the year before, transitioned those properties to another management company. And I guess I'm semi-retired because I'm doing some work for that company as well. But right now, just concentrating a little bit on trying to, get better at golf and do the commissioner thing for the rest of this term. This is my third term as county commissioner. I serve as the president of the commission, and so kind of where I am.
So you've really been always on the mid-shore. You haven't really gone like you've built your life here.
Yeah, there was one year that the family moved to Newark, Delaware, because my father worked at Chrysler, and it was a 75-mile drive one way. We gave that a shot one year, and I think it was when I was in the third grade, but we moved there, bought a house, lived there for a year, then moved back because my mother just said, no, I'm not living anywhere but Greensboro. And it was interesting because when we moved back, the people who lived on both sides of us moved to Greensboro as well. She talked about it so much that they moved here and lived here the rest of their lives. So, I mean, but other than that, I've been in this county, and I've been very fortunate to be able to, have a business and run a business that I was able to do and still stay home.
It's, as the director of Caroline County, I say it over and over again. I'm not from here, but I love living here. It brings me as close to my hometown of 84, Pennsylvania as I can be. And still, I love Maryland.
Yeah.
And I do love Caroline County. We're downsizing, but we're still buying a house, actually moving to Ridgely, it looks like. I want to stay in Caroline. So I can see why you would want to spend your life here. It's a wonderful, I always call it a beautiful secret. People don't realize how strong and how amazing the people are in this community, in this county, and Greensboro is no exception. Each one has their own individual strengths. So one of the things I'm going to, as the president of the commissioners, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, can you give us an overview of how Caroline County is weathered through COVID? How long do you think our recovery might take, or are we already in that recovery?
I think we're already in the recovery, and I think that we weathered it very well, primarily because of the people we have that worked on it. I can't, as commissioners, we try to set the tone but the work is actually done, as you know, the work is actually done by the staff, by the health department, by the volunteers. I mean, when we did vaccinations, we had people who volunteered to come stand out in the rain and snow and wore the pods and everything, and did that to volunteer. And I think I'm a little bit biased, but I think we had the best run operation in the state of Maryland. I think we had people who tracked people, gave you an appointment. Our goal was when you pulled into that parking lot, you were parked, you were in that building, we didn't want anybody to wait around. You were in that building, you got your shot, you had your observation time, and you were gone. And one of the few things that I can think of that I didn't ever hear anybody complain about was the process. Testing was the same way. And I think it was solely because of the effort and the dedication of, the people who took it on and worked, just worked on it hard. And I mean, as commissioners, I mean, I went out and did some things. I know Commissioner Levingood, Commissioner Franklin, and we would go pick people up to take them who didn't have transportation, but we try to stay out of the way. I mean, and I think the thing, I mean, I was on a weekly call with the governor's office, and I'm usually the guy that asks a question that nobody wants to answer, but I mean, I do, and so we were able to kind of work and advocate for more shots, in the beginning, and why are we only getting this many? But it's the people and it's the staff. And I could spend, the rest of the time telling you about people who did things to make it work. And, 10:30 at night, I'm getting text messages and, here's what we're going to do tomorrow. We need to do this it was an incredible effort by everybody.
It really was. Right from the beginning, that everybody just kind of leapt into
Yep.
action
Yep.
and just did what needed to be done. It was an amazing feat to watch, and the chamber kind of just funneled what we could
Right.
through and
Exactly.
did what we could to help and support everyone
And it
was out
wasn't I'm not going to do that because that's not what it wasn't that. It was, how can I do this? How can we work? We have, as you hear me say, and as Caroline Proud, Caroline Way, and that's the Caroline Way. You don't stand around and say, "Oh, that's not my job. I'm not supposed to do that." That's not the way we do things here.
Exactly.
Everybody pitches in and everybody does what they can. So that's why it was successful.
Absolutely true. 100%. So, we see in the chamber that we do have that recovery, but it's nice to talk with you. And we had
Sure.
Debbie Bowden here last time, and she also said the same thing. No doubt about it. Caroline has weathered through. We are Caroline proud, Caroline strong, and the chamber's seeing that recovery too.
As we got the money, as we got recovery money, CARES money, our goal was to get that money out to the businesses, to get that money to small business people, single entrepreneurs, and really try to make it as simple and easy as we possibly could. Because one of our directions was that we're not gonna have a lot of red tape with this thing. Let's get this money. The people need it. We need to get it to them. We need to have it available to them. And I think I think it was over $2 million that went out to small business.
It was a phenomenal job, and I heard feedback from some of those small businesses. It was essential to help them to get through that. It wasn't a huge, long time, even though it seems it was a year. A lot of the businesses were able to shift,
yes,
change, and become more innovative.
Yes.
And if we look at anything positive that came out of COVID, it's that we
Right.
now know how we can work from home. We know how we can keep some of these businesses running and open, but that money truly did help, and it was efficient. It was efficient and fast. So that's pretty good. I thought it was amazing. So what has been the biggest challenges for you, and what has surprised you during that unprecedented time over the last year, let's say from March until now? What was your biggest challenge, and what was your biggest surprise, if there were any?
Biggest challenge was to carry on county business, for example, to balance a county budget, uh, by Zoom, and try as hard as we could to still allow the input from the public to allow people to comment. We are now back to a point where our meetings are open again, but I mean, all three of us were just all the time saying we got to figure out a way to let people tell us what they, what they feel about this. Um, Part of the reason that we attend a good number of events and try to make as many things as we can during normal times is it gives us an opportunity to talk to people and ask people questions. What do you think? How are things going? When you take that away, it's difficult, to get the input. And so we set it up the best we could, but it was bothersome to us that we, didn't really have the public input that we wanted. We balanced the budget. We did it without a tax increase, and it was doable, but at the same time, it was different. Surprise. Yeah, the whole thing was a surprise. I mean, every day was a surprise, and every day was every day was a, okay, here's what we got to do today. Fortunately, our communication at every one of our commissioner meetings and every other day, we had senior staff meetings so that the health officer could explain where we were, what our numbers. Every day we got a report on what our positivity rate was. So I mean, I don't know that other than the whole process or the whole pandemic, we tried not to have surprises. And, one of the things that we tell our staff is give us more information than we need. I can take information and figure out what I need to know, but I don't want to be surprised. So, you feed me everything you can get, all the emails, all that, I will read it and I'll sift through it, but I don't want to be caught without knowing what's going on. So
good. Well, that's good. I mean, you're right. Every day was a surprise. I mean, the office where we were closed down in March. It just opened yesterday because of state and federal employees in there over at the Soil Conservation Building. And, but they did the best they could. You could come in and out with an appointment. So, every day, you're right, was a surprise. But I think I feel Caroline kind of just did a great job.
Well, and I think that there was a lot. I mean, I began on the calls. I mean, I think one of the things that we face in this county is there's not a one size fits all. And on these calls with the governor, and the governor was on the calls in the beginning, I mean, he was taking a lot of heat about, well, elected officials in the larger counties, they wanted to shut everything down, but they didn't want to take responsibility for it. They wanted him to do it. And he was very adamant about the fact, no, I mean, we're going to work through this and we're going to do it. And I hear some criticism of him, but I don't even know how the guy did it. I don't know how he weathered that storm, because I mean, it was a constant battle, to try to make it all work in the different areas of the state. And what works in Caroline County does not work in Montgomery County. And everybody knows that. The problem is, how do you work around that?
Right. So many components. And it certainly is easy to be critical on the sidelines, right?
Yeah.
You're in the middle of it. So, so let's shift to personal stuff. Let people get to know you a little bit more. We know you were born and raised here in Greensboro. So can you tell me, how has your journey shaped you into the person you are today? Just a little bit about where you've been and what you've done.
Well, I think a lot of it has been, growing up here, we were always, my mother was a very strong personality. I mean, everybody who grew up in Greensboro has a Miss Dorothy story. But my mom was like, she was like social services and United Way before there was United Way. So if you needed something, she'd get it. If she had it, she'd give it to you. But we were always kind of told, you got to participate. You have to be willing to work and to help and, um, not stand by and complain. And the other thing that we were taught was, the people that growing up are going to be, when you reach their age, they're going to be older and you need to help them and support them. And I mean, that's one of the things. I don't get a chance to do it as often, but I will go to the nursing home and visit people. And sometimes I don't even know you're there. But there are people that I knew and had an impact on my life growing up in this town. And one of the reasons that I wrote the book was to be able to point those people out. You know, um, Mr. Irving Ober, started his automotive business, bought the old Greensboro school, and then dedicated the land for the park for special needs kids. And I mean, when they had the dedication for that park, I mean, I've known his son Bob for ever since I can remember. And Bobby told me, he said, my dad had an opportunity to sell this land, but he said he always said, no, sometime in the future, I'm going to give this land and it's going to be used for a good purpose. I mean, Fred Monroe, who started Greensboro Scrapping, businessman. I mean, but a great guy. And there's a poem that he wrote that I reproduced in my book about Dr. Stonecipher, that when you read it will bring you to tears. And he just wrote that poem when Dr. Stonecipher passed away. And I'm thinking, man, Buddy Simpson, who just passed away, Greensboro Volunteer Fire Company for over 60 years. 60 years that he got up and went, and volunteered right up until, the time that he just couldn't. But I mean, those people who really made an impact on me and those families, they demonstrated to us, you got to do something. You can't. I don't know. I think it's, I'm volunteer life member of the Volunteer Fire Company. I mean, those are things that I think you have to do. And I just can't. My one thing is that I just can't deal with people who just set along and always have a better idea, or, they always say, oh, well, this is what I'd have done. Well, then do it.
Exactly.
Then do it. And, and certainly from the commissioner's standpoint, I carry $25 in my wallet. That's the filing fee to run for county commissioner. So when I have somebody want to tell me how they know everything, I say, here's your money, go file. I'm not doing it to be I'm just saying, if you have ideas, if you think that you can do things a better way, because there's always a way to do things better, then do it instead of just, but I just think that it's that sense of community and giving back to the community. I mean, we were blessed to grow up in this town. I mean, we knew every person that lived in every house. I mean, you couldn't, you did stuff, but you couldn't get away with it because before you got home,
the phone was already ringing, right?
And
as a kid, I'd be like, how does my mother know that already? It's because,
as I said,
the mom network.
My grandparents lived right around the corner, and we'd ride bikes down the middle of the street. Before I got home, my mother was like, you were riding your bicycle? Because my grandmother would be sitting there staring out the window watching. So, I mean, it was just that sense of community, where everybody kind of knew everybody. And
I think it's good. Community is getting involved.
Sure.
It's actually putting action behind your words. Like I said, it's easy to be critical or to complain. If you see a better way, get involved, volunteer,
Certainly.
Figure out how to do it. And I think that the beautiful thing about Caroline County is that we have more people that do get involved than we do the opposite, right?
We're a county of volunteers.
Exactly.
And I mean,
you need it.
And I say this all the time. I mean, we have people who volunteer to be on the Board of Zoning Appeals. You go in, you have a case, you don't get paid to do that. What you get is you get to see that person in Walmart who you ruled against and have them run you a bunch of crap in Walmart about it. But they do it. They volunteer for the planning commission. They volunteer for board of zoning appeals. They volunteer for the, human services council, not even to talk about our volunteer fire companies. I mean, if you ever want to talk about, a group of people who just give themselves to the community, and people, I think, sometimes take that for granted and lose sight of it, and I have people who come to me and say, "Oh, the fire siren's too loud." Really? When it blows, wake up, join the fire company and go. Because if it's going to wake you up, go join the fire company.
Exactly.
Because and not only do they put themselves in the line of fire, they work to raise money to pay to do it.
Exactly.
Because we don't give them enough money. The county doesn't give them enough money. And so in addition to, the training and the work, and today, if it's 99 degrees and that fire whistle blows, you're going to have people that are going to go put on turnout gear and go out there. When it's 9 degrees at 2:00 in the morning, so I can't even express to people, the sacrifices that these people make. You just can't do it. And not only that, but I'm on the board for All Seasons, the behavioral mental health care. And one of the things that I tried to impress on them was a lot of these people will not ask for help, but it'll work on you. It'll work on you because there's 33,000 people in Caroline County. I'm probably related to 15,000 of them, but we're all so close and we're all so tightly knit that if you show up on a scene of an accident, it very well could be someone that you know, or it very well could be someone you're related. So that will work on you over a period of time. I mean, I'm in my 38th year. I haven't been active, for a long time, but I got to a point where it got to be too much. It just got to be too much. And every time that whistle blows, someone is going to be in an emergency situation, and those people are going to respond. Right. And I don't care what anybody says, as long, and I can speak, I very seldom ever speak for the other commissioners, but all 3 county commissioners are volunteer firemen. Commissioner Levingood is an active, he still leaves and goes to drive the tanker, and we will support the fire companies. And I hope that anybody else who comes in those seats understands what those guys do. Right. People do.
I think that sometimes it's just like you said, taken for granted that it's going to be there. But I do find comfort in what you said of, if you're in an emergency situation, you might know that person helping you. And that is a comfort, because you might not be, you just don't know what's going to happen in that situation. Yeah. So I do agree. I'd love to see the chamber have a really great relationship with the fire companies, the fire departments, because we're here to support people just like them. Sure. And, so I hopefully we can do that and move forward.
I would just say to people, if you can support them through fundraising, helping, that a lot of the auxiliaries, the ladies auxiliaries are no longer around, but they have associate memberships. You can go join, and you don't have to go, but you can help with dinners. You can help. Goldsboro Fire Company has probably, out of 300, however many days there are, they'll have 300 fundraisers. I mean, they work every time. They do every the dinners,
hold on,
craft show, Texas up. I mean, and they work to raise the money. Denton used to have bingo. I mean, when I was president of Denton Fire Company, the only way you could get thrown out of the fire company was if you missed working 3 bingos, right? So if you missed 1, you made up 2. Missed 2, you made up 4. You missed the 3rd one, I delivered a letter to you thanking you for being in the company. So I mean, but it was so important from a fundraising standpoint that you had to have that money. So we not only ask them to go put their lives on the line, but we ask them to work to raise money to pay for it. So it's unique.
So you mentioned the book. What's the title of your book?
The book is called Life on the Edge,
Right.
and it is my mother's maiden name was Edge, so it's
Nice.
about that. So, and it's a it's a book that talks about my family, both sides of my family, tracing them back to Caroline County, even in the county, back to at least great grandparents,
Wow.
and so a little bit about my family, both sides, and then also about growing up in Greensboro and my memories of things in town and about some of the people and what they accomplished and what they did. A significant part of the first part of the book is about Dr. Stonecipher. So Dr. Stonecipher was a doctor in Greensboro for 50 years. He practiced in Greensboro for 50 years. He practiced right up until the time he died.
Wow.
His office was right on Stonecipher Drive. He delivered me.
Wow.
I was born in a farmhouse right outside of town. The legend is that I was premature and he put me in a shoebox lined with cotton and lit the oven and set me on the oven door. Now, I don't know, but that's what I was told, and that's the legend. But never married, never owned a home, lived in a rooming house. His only luxury that he ever had was to buy a new car each year. But he kept his hours. There were no appointments. So if you went down there, you would go in and he would stay as long as there was a patient in there. Plus, he made house calls.
Wow.
So if you didn't feel like going down there sitting for like 14 hours to get a physical to play ball, you'd say, "Man, I'm sick," and she'd be staring at you, and but yeah, I mean, you would see him all hours of the night, and a chicken flying around in the car because somebody didn't have money. They would pay. I mean, I mean, he is one of the most loved people in this area. I mean, and his prescription method was he kept and all of his medical equipment is in the museum and down in the Greensboro Museum, and he little bag and he'd sit there and he would come to visit you at the house. And he'd sit on the couch and then he'd fall asleep because he'd been up all night. And then my mother would say, I'd say, "He's asleep." And she'd go, "You go get a blanket, wrap him up. And you wait. If you wake him up," I'm like, "All right, fine." So then he'd wake up and then he'd watch TV and then he'd say, "What's wrong?" "I don't know." So he'd reach in his bag and he would pull out some pills. He'd put them in an envelope. And he would tell you, "If you run out of these and need more, just come down and I'll leave you some in the office." Well, you'd go in the office and there's a little table and there were all these envelopes with pills with people's names written on them. And if I had to go get a prescription for my mom, I'd just go look through all of them and I'd find hers and take it and go. I mean, that's the way it was done. And I mean,
That's amazing.
yeah, she took medicine from him. She died in 2002. I think he died in like 78. She took medicine from him till she died. She would ration it out. It was in a bottle and she would pour a little bit out and take it. And I'd be like, "Mom, I don't know." "Dr. Stonecipher." I said, "I know. I'm just saying there might be an expiration date on that."
Yeah,
"I don't know. I'm just telling you, man." But incredible guy. You could write a book about him alone. And, a hero to everybody.
Well, I think I'm excited. We're going to talk at the end about the book signings and we'll kind of let people know where you are. So I'm going to go back to you were elected to the board of county commissioners and you serve as the president. Are there any programs pending that you'd like to share? Anything legislatively? Anything new coming up around the corner that we might want to let people know about? And if not, that's great too. It's summer, so
yeah. I mean, the one piece of legislation I think that everybody has really been keeping their eye on is the Kerwin Commission.
Yeah.
And the Kerwin Commission is a very complicated piece of legislation, and it kind of got pushed back. But it's an education.
So it did get pushed
bill.
back. It's not at the forefront right now.
Let me tell you what I remember. I think the governor vetoed the bill. His veto was overridden, but I think with COVID, everything kind of got moved back, and I believe that there is some restructuring of the bill that's going on. But it is a very, very expensive bill, and it will cost the county a lot of money. So I won't go into into the numbers because they could change, but it would be a substantial increase into the funding of the Board of Education for Caroline County. Other than that, I mean, our legislative agenda is really pushing broadband, using the recovery money to the extent that we can to to light up the county, because I think everyone understands at this point, if the pandemic has proved one thing, it's it's the importance of internet service. And so that's a major goal for us before we get out of this term.
And I think most people will be excited to hear that. I mean, I make a joke that over here we're like, our broadband's like a rubber band and a paper clip put together, and people from the other side of the bridge can't even imagine that we are running businesses with not the same resources, yet we're expected to run our businesses the same as they do. And so I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. I knew that you were. We know Chop Tank Electric is working on that broadband initiative. I think they did a ribbon cutting not long ago when they put it in the first place
at Gordon and Sherry Holland's house.
So that's amazing, and we're super excited about that, because each business in our county wants to be successful. And having broadband, we don't want to lose bigger companies because we can't provide those basic services. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
The trick has been, getting the service to our agriculture, to our farmers. I mean, Caroline County is an agricultural county, and I mean, if you take a ride around, you'll see, I mean, my wife's family, has some farms. And I mean, if you see the long lanes, like her grandparents, lived in a house, had about a quarter of a mile long lane. How do you get it to them? I mean, who pays?
Exactly.
How do you do that? And so I think the recovery money will come in very handy with that. But that was our number one legislative priority, was to move the broadband initiative forward. Chop Tank, we are in communication with them a lot, and so that's our goal, and trying to make sure that we have that access to everyone. And so it'll be a big focus for the next however long year and a half we have.
Yeah, to get it done. So it is exciting. It's we know it will get done, and it it's just going to make a huge difference. And I agree. I mean, my lane is about a quarter of a mile, and so getting it to us back there has been an interesting thing. But so I just think that if we could have choices, that's the main thing, not just one company or another, but choices to be able to do it. And with the equipment the farmers use and need, they have to have satellite access. They have to have all of that. I mean, the equipment is unbelievable. It's not your grandfather's,
No, it's not. It's not even my father-in-law's equipment anymore, because my son farmed for a number of years with him, and then after he passed away, and I mean, I would pull out there sometimes and ask my son. I said, "Is there anything I can help you do?" He said, "What do you know how to do?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, you're right." Yeah. So, but yeah, it is so technical and so high tech. You sit there in a combine and you just think about, how does that work? I mean, how do you look at all these things and all this is going on? So, but it is, and farmers are very they're very tech savvy as well, and they have to be in order to be able to run their businesses.
So anything that we have not discussed thus far that you feel you'd like to share with our listeners, anything that you wanted to touch on? I feel like we've had such a great conversation. I always have a signature question, but is there anything you want to share before I ask that?
I don't think so. I think it's as I always say, it is certainly an honor and a privilege to be a county commissioner. I mean, you know, I have people who say to me, man, I bet you get tired. I don't, because, you know, to be able to have people to go out and ask for people to vote for you and support you and then have them do it, I feel it's just a tremendous obligation that you don't want to let people down. You know, you just don't want to make, you know, bad decisions. And there are certainly decisions that we make that, you know, I'm happy to explain to people, and I'm sure that they don't understand all of them. But the biggest thing is to just your goal as a county commissioner is to leave the county better than it was when you got there. And this has been a long haul. Commissioner Levingood and I came in 2010 together. We'll be going 12 years, and that's a long time. And Commissioner Franklin will be 8 years. So there's been a tremendous, you know, kind of sense of continuity there, which I think that I think people are going to have to understand that there are going to be significant changes coming. The change has already started with staff. The change has already started with retirements from the Board of Education. So, you know, the relationships that are built, you know, between the county commissioners and the Board of Education are extremely important. And there are counties in this state where the county commissioners won't even be in the same room with the Board of Education. That doesn't accomplish anything. That doesn't serve anything, and it doesn't accomplish what we want to do, is do what we can do for the betterment of our kids, right? So, you know, and I spoke at a seminar, and they specifically on why we were able to work with our Board of Education. I'm like, really? And so, but I said, because you know, at that time, Walt Palmer, who was coming off the Board of Education, graduated from high school with my wife. Kathy Dill, you know, Kathy and I graduated from high school together. So I don't go in looking at these people as crooks or criminal. I look at them as people that I've known all my life, and you know, and we certainly will disagree and we'll express our own opinions, but I don't go into it, and I hope that the future people who sit in those seats won't go into it with a feeling of, you know, these guys are the enemies.
Right.
They're not. They're not. And you know, so that's about it. I just think you try to do things that when you walk away, you can say, yeah, that was something that is good and helpful to the county.
I think it's interesting that you said leave things better than you found it. I follow that principle as well. I agree that if you come into something, you want to do your best and make it better and leave for the next person to move it even further forward. So
my thing when I came in was healthcare access, and we could do a whole podcast day on how that came about and how we were able to get an urgent care center, how we were able to, you know, to work with Shore Health, the people that stepped up to help with that. It would be an interesting podcast to do that, because there were so many people who came on and said, hey, let me help you. Because when I first started talking about it, they were like, they're not paying attention to you. You know, those people are just, they don't care about Caroline County. I'm like, well, we'll find out. But the people who just called up and said, how can I help you? Senator Mac Middleton from Charles County, he calls me up. He's chairman of the Appropriations Committee. He calls me up one day. He goes, you still in the fire company? And I'm like, well, I'm a member. He goes, well, I still drive the ambulance down here in Charles County. How can I help you with this thing? Well, I'm thinking, well, you're chairman of the Appropriations Committee. You can help. And he did. He took his time. Have to do that. I mean, the attorney that represented us, you know, on the certificate of need, he basically didn't charge us because he said, I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do. Bruce Jarrell, who is now president, you know, University of Maryland, Bruce grew up in Goldsboro. And, you know, I called Bruce and he said, we walked into a meeting and he goes, I'm taking off my University of Maryland hat and I'm putting on my Caroline County hat. I mean, those are things that you could talk about that people just would never understand how important those things were. And you can't stand up there and say, I did this and I did that. I can tell you right now, the work that Sarah Vicentainer did, the work that the staff did, the work that everybody put into this, that's what made it happen. And you can't, the worst thing you can do is stand up and say, I. You can't do that. You can't do that. And it was a real team effort.
And you don't do that, and neither does your staff or anyone else in the commissioner's office. It's not about it's about we. It always has been. And when I first became the director, I met with some people from Shore Health, and she basically said, "You have no idea what it took to get this place here and to have the urgent care." And again, we go back to, we're talking about the fire department taking things for granted. People just think, poof, that happened. And you have to look at the ratio of people, and there's so many variables that
it's a business decision for Shore Health.
I had no idea. So, obviously I thought, I agree, it would be a lovely podcast to discuss about that, because the growth that we have in Denton and in Caroline County to have these things, Chaptake Health, Shore Regional Health, urgent care, so many things. We used to have to go all the way to Easton.
Caroline County was the only county in the state of Maryland that didn't have either a hospital or an urgent care center. And one of only two counties. Queen Anne doesn't have a hospital. They have the Graysonville, thing on surgical center on Graysonville. But growing up in this county my whole life, if you had to go to the hospital or to get anything beyond just Dr. Stonesafer, you went to another county or another state, because from here you went to Dover, right?
True.
So that was my point that I made. I said, that's not right. It's not fair. And and from day one, what I said to them was, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. And no matter how, the lawyer told me I'm the worst client he's ever had in his life. I said, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to be clear that 35% of the patients that go to Easton Hospital are from Caroline County. When you're transporting patients in this county in our ambulances, it's a 2-hour turnaround time, and you're putting miles on our ambulance. So the deal that we were able to work was that they, for a 5-year period, they contributed $120,000 a year to us rebuilding our ambulance fleet. So that was a difficult thing, because they kept saying to me, we collect money. We don't give money to anybody. We collect money. We don't have a mechanism to give anybody money. And I'm like, well, let's find one, because
figure it out.
But I mean, that deal was, I think, a symbol of how everybody pulled together and worked together. And I will tell you that it's one of the more interesting, gratifying things I've ever done in my life. And so when I have people say to me, oh man, I took my little girl out to that urgent care center, boy, I'm glad that's what you want to do.
And the staff there is wonderful.
Absolutely.
They're great people. They're very supportive of the chamber and active, and we're so glad to have them.
Yeah.
It is a wonderful thing.
And we have a great partner in Ken Kozel from Shore Health. Great partner. He came in 2010. We kind of said, we had a meeting, and he said, Caroline County's health metrics, you're first in everything you don't want to be first in, and you're last in everything you don't want to be last in. And I'm like, well, why? And he goes, well, because the Maryland Department of Health says you don't have enough fresh fruit and vegetable stands in the county. And I'm like, well, it couldn't be because we don't have an urgent care center or a hospital. So that's where we started. And from that day, Ken said, we're going to work on this, and we're going to do it. Well, we formed a health task force. The first person I called was my old neighbor, Wayne Howard, who was the first guy who started Choptank Community Health. I mean, he was retired. I said, "Kid, you got to come." He goes, "Tell me what you want me to do." I mean, every person that I would contact said, "Tell me what you need me to do."
Collaboration, partnerships, and working on relationships. Those are the things that Caroline County is all about.
Absolutely.
And what a great run it's been for you as the commissioner.
For us, all three of us.
For all three. Yeah. All three commissioners have been completely supportive of just everything.
I've never, in the 12 years I've worked with Commissioner Levengood and the 8 years I've worked with Commissioner Franklin, there's never been a time when any issue has come up that both of them have not said, what's the best thing we can do for the people in the county? That is the first thing they say, honestly, honest to God. It is never, oh, well, let's think about how, it's always, what's the thing we can do that'll help the people in this county?
And it shows. It shows.
Thank you.
I think it shows. So my signature question, and I kind of changed it a little bit for you because you're a native. Not everyone's a native here. Is what does being a native living and working in Caroline County mean to you?
Everything. It means being able to live. I mean, I hear people who say, I'm leaving, I'm moving from here. I don't ever want to come back. And I'm like, I don't understand that because I am so, I mean, the fact that I can walk down this street and see people and stop and talk to them and have a connection with them. And, I was in Walmart and my wife calls and says, while you're in Walmart, buy yourself a new shirt because you've spilled food down the front of your shirt. And I'm like, well, where are you? She goes, home. And I said, well, how do you know? And she goes, well, I won't use her name, but a friend of ours is in line in front of you at Walmart. She said she called me to tell me you got food all down in front of you. And she knows you won't do anything. You'll walk around like that all day. And I'm like, so I look up there and she's like waving and I'm like, so, but the fact, I love that. Some people, I know that there are some elected officials who don't want to go be bothered. Look, I love the fact that I have a connection and I see a person and I say, yeah, you and I went to school together, or I went to school with your brother, or I played, baseball with or I coached your son, or to me, that means everything. I can't imagine living anywhere where you didn't know anyone or, you had to go meet all new people. And, I mean, and the roots run deep here. They run deep here. And, my mother would sit on that front porch of that house and every car that came down this road, she'd want to know who it was. Or if you walked in front of my house, you had to tell her where you were going. You had to tell her, what you were going to do. Do you need 50 cents? Because she kept her change purse in her bra, right? And she'd be reaching down in there. One of my stories is I had a Letterman jacket, for baseball in college. And I come up, I come up uptown, as we used to say. I come up here and I see this guy, he got a Letterman jacket on. And I'm like, he played. So I go over to start asking, it's mine. And I'm like, dude, you got my, he goes, I was walking past your house and your mom said it was too cold to be out without a jacket. So she went in and got me this one. It's a nice jacket. And I said, yeah, it's a nice jacket. So I go home and I'm like, Mom. And she goes, oh, you don't have a jacket? I said, well, I do, but I would kind of like that one. And she goes, that's selfish of you. That's selfish of you to not, that boy needed a jacket. I'm like, okay, fine. But, that was the way it was. And, I got concerned about it, later on as things changed a little bit where people would come up and ask to use their phone. Oh, honey, come right in here. But you did get past my house without her quizzing
out, right?
Where you been? Now, who are you? Now, honey, who are you? Who do you belong to? That's the way it was. And who do you belong to? But, no, it was, I couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
And that's amazing. And, like I said, I love living here. As the director, I've appreciated all three of you as commissioners. Your support means everything. You do attend what you can. Mm-hmm. And if you can't, you'll let me know if it's something, especially like a ribbon cutting, sure, because you guys have that vested interest. I know here, Give to Guy Media is a new business. We're so glad to be working with them. And,
I am. Yeah.
They have a whole conglomerate.
Man, this is a great setup.
And it is. It's great. And, but we appreciate your time and for you being here. Let's end with your book signings. We talked about that before we went on air. So we know that you're going to be around town with your book. So people, if they are interested and they want to come and they can purchase the book on Amazon, right?
Correct.
They can purchase the book on Amazon. Give them the title again. We want
Life on the Edge.
Life on the Edge.
And so July 10th at noon, I'll be signing at Denton Diner. I'm looking at my sheet.
Denton Diners, and familiar face Ozzy is went from 9 Central Diner to Denton Diner, and they're a new chamber member, so we're glad to have them back.
A great business and a great community person. She's incredible.
Absolutely.
So July 14th, there'll be a book signing at Ridgely Cruise Inn, which is in front of Ridgely Pharmacy. Nice. That starts at 5. I think it goes from like 5 to 7.
Nice.
And I will be splitting the profits of any books that I sell that day with Positive Strides.
Oh, excellent. Therapeutic.
Each month, I think Brenda has a organization that she supports.
Awesome.
So that month, it's Positive Strides in Preston. Great organization.
They are
out there. They do therapeutic work with. Yes.
So we do appreciate all that they do.
Absolutely. And Greensboro Museum on Friday, July 16th, and I will be splitting any profits with the museum with the Greensboro Historical Society, and then. July 17th, Bullock's Deli at 10 o'clock in the morning. And of course, I'll be splitting the profits with the Leukemia and Lymphoma organization. Boy, you talk about community partners. I mean, Bullock's, I can't even tell you the work Michelle does. And, and I mean, you want to sponsor for something, you go there. And a wonderful, just a great family operation. Never says no to anything, and they do an incredible job fundraising for leukemia.
They do. And their daughter Angie, she was a wonderful person. Yes. I got to know her and her daughter. One of the things I'll tell you a funny story about Bullocks. We live on Camp Road, so we ordered a lot from Bullocks, right? Because they have really good food.
Yeah.
And it got to the point they knew us. They knew our order. They knew who we were. And we're like, wait a minute, because we lived in Laurel, Maryland, and it took us forever to get to know our neighbors, forever for people to connect. I thought we were never going to do it. And we moved here, and we're here like a few months, and they're like, oh, the Snyders, we know you, just amazing.
I'll tell you what you want.
Exactly.
When I go in, they'll say, here's what, you want this. But if you want to know anything, if you want to have any idea about what's happening in Caroline County, you go sit at that first table at Bullock's. And you go in there at lunchtime, and I'm telling you, man, you can find out anything you want in there. I find out things I don't even know about in there. And but it's the table. And when you sit there, you better be ready, because there's going to be questions about things. But I don't know how you can duplicate what they've got there with the sense of knowing people and waiting on you and making you feel like, okay, we're going here to give you this. What do you want? And how are you doing today? How's everything going? I recently went through a bout of vertigo, and it was pretty serious. And I stopped in and talked to Ricky, and he's like, if you ever need anybody to come help you do anything, you call here. You call this number, and we will send somebody. And I'm like, I know. And they would. There's no question in my mind. And, I'll tell you, when you you're in Caroline County, when you have a guy who, and I won't mention his name, but there's a guy that is battling a really difficult health issue right now, and he calls me up and says, how you doing? Is there anything you need or anything I can do for you? Right? And I'm sitting there thinking, this guy is going through an awful health issue, and he's calling me to ask if I'm okay and asking me if I need anything. Wow. Now there you couldn't encapsulate Caroline County any more than that. That's just a perfect example of what happens. So
again, community.
Absolutely.
People stepping out of their own need to help others. So again, thank you so much, Mr. Reporter. I'm going to end with our duck Our Duck Derby is July 16th in Greensboro down at Chopchink River Park. It is at the Riverfest Concert Series and Food Truck Wars. We're working with the town of Greensboro. Right. The chamber is working with them. Well, there's a band, there's food trucks, and the ducks will drop off the bridge at 6 p.m. Okay. They'll be numbered. So if you want to purchase a duck, it's 1 for 10, 3 for 25. The top duck that crosses, we're going to drop them at the bridge. You're going to go down to the ramp. We'll have people in the water to stop them. Yeah. The top duck is a $500 cash prize. Cool. The second duck is $250, and the third duck is $100. Our $500 is sponsored by Midshore Technology. We are working with Greensboro Pharmacy and Tri-Gas and Oil. The rest of the ducks, the top 10 ducks, will get prizes. And all of the proceeds for the ducks help our Caroline nonprofit network. Okay. That includes Midshore Pro Bono, CASA, the Humane Society, just to name a few. There's more in there. His Hope Ministries. So all that money, when you buy a duck, goes to help, and you can do it on Venmo. You can go to our website at carolinechamber.org and buy a duck and let us know what numbers you want. We have 1,000 ducks. We hope to sell them all and drop them in so that we can help. We're going to do an emergency fund through the nonprofit network. So if somebody says, hey, we have a resident that can't do something and they need these funds, as a group, we will be able to help in that situation as well.
That's the 16th.
July 16th.
Mm-hmm. I'll be down there, and then we'll do my book signing.
Excellent.
So, perfect. Yeah, and we went to Riverfest.
I did see you
down there, and
the banner was good.
Won a gift certificate to Save a Lot, which is one of my favorite places. Books are available for sale at Save a Lot. They're available at Greensboro Pharmacy, Tenchi, Ridgely Pharmacy, and Denton Diner. So, but Chang is a very good friend of mine, and his brother Young, who has the Try Me grocery store in Ridgely. Great people, great friends, and again, great community people.
Outstanding. Well, thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
As always, and join us next time on Chamber Chat. We are going to have, our guest is going to be Lynn Keckler from His Hope Ministry. She's the executive director.
Right.
All right.
Good organization.